And a news point today, we start with a story that we've been closely tracking on WION for the past few months, the Ukraine-Russia conflict. In the latest, the White House has announced new estimated casualty figures from Russia's winter offensive in Ukraine. It says that Moscow has suffered more than 100,000 casualties since December, asserting on how the number is the key signal that Moscow's effort has backfired. Now, the graphics are on your screen right now. Like we mentioned, the White House estimates that 100,000 Russians have suffered casualties in the last 5 months. And out of the 100,000, almost 20,000 Russians have died. Like you can see, 20,000 Russians have been killed in action in the past 5 months. That is since December. And most of the Russian troops that have been killed, the 20,000 Russians that have been killed, half of them belong to the Wagner Group. Meanwhile, White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby told the reporters that the estimates were based on U.S. intelligence. Kirby further said that the Russians have made a lot of gains in Bakhmut, but that has come at a terrible cost. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Ukraine's defenses in the region remain strong.
For Russia, this attempted effort, particularly in Bakhmut, has come at a terribly, terribly high cost. Russia has exhausted its military stockpiles and its armed forces. And since December alone, and remember now, some of the shelling and fighting over Bakhmut goes well back before December, but just since December, we estimate that Russia has suffered more than 100,000 casualties, including over 20,000 killed in action.
Kirby said that he was not giving estimates of Ukrainian casualties because they are the victims here and Russia is the aggressor. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military said that it is locked in a position of struggle as fierce fighting continues to rage on in Bakhmut, further adding that Kiev has been able to push back Russian forces after a series of counterattacks. Russia's defense ministry on Monday said that its forces had carried out missile strikes overnight against Ukrainian military sites, which includes weapon depots and ammunition factories as well. Let's also now give you a roundup of all the major developments that has happened in the ongoing war in Ukraine. Number one, as you can see, that the White House estimates that around 100,000 Russians have died or have been killed in the ongoing war in Ukraine in the past 5 months, that is since December. Meanwhile, Russian missiles also struck warehouse in Ukraine. This incident occurred last night. And Ukrainian air defenses, when the missiles were striking various areas in Ukraine, Ukraine's air defenses have said that they shot down 15 of 18 missiles, which is a huge number. Meanwhile, Wagner chief has also asked for more ammunition to take Bakhmut. And they have accused the Russian president not to provide Prigozhin with ammunition at the moment. Prigozhin has meanwhile also said that his troops has advanced 120 meters into Bakhmut. Bakhmut again remains a contested region in the ongoing war in Ukraine. And lastly, Kiev has said that the situation in Bakhmut is quite difficult. For more on this, we are now being joined by Dr. Lada L. Rosleski from Tennessee. Dr. Lada is a founder at Black Trident Defense and Security Consulting Group. Thank you so much for joining us on WION, Dr. Lada.
Hello, thank you.
Now, help us understand what is the on-ground situation right now. On one hand, the White House claims that around 100,000 Russian troops have been killed or have been martyred in the action. While on the other hand, Moscow claims that it has made a lot of gains in Bakhmut. So what is the on-ground situation right now?
The on-ground situation in Ukraine right now is horrific. And the numbers are off and unclear.95,000 in accordance with what the Ukrainians are saying. So the Americans are saying 100,000 casualties. That includes injured and killed, while the Ukrainians are putting forth 195,000 and counting. Approximately, they assert 450 Russians are being killed a day. Unfortunately, truth is the first thing that we lose when war begins. And the losses of the Ukrainian side are tremendous. And we have to really remember this.
Right, Dr. Lara, just to add to that, there are no clear information or estimates as to how many Ukrainian soldiers have also died. I mean, the White House clearly said that we will not come out with the numbers of the Ukrainian soldiers that have died because they've clearly labeled Russia, the Russian side, as the aggressor. But I also want to seek your perspective as to a latest report suggests that Kiev might launch a counteroffensive on May 15th, which is in just a matter of few days. Do you think that the counteroffensive has already begun?
I think that we don't even understand what the word counteroffensive means. A true counteroffensive would allow the Ukrainians to prevent Russia from actually entering its territory. So if we're talking about a counteroffensive as it pertains to the territories that the Russians have current power over inside of Ukraine, it's an ongoing battle. And playing a number game, which date it will begin, is extremely dangerous. And it also puts a lot of psychological pressure, not only on the Ukrainians and on the Russians, but globally. So we have been waiting for a so-called counteroffensive for over half a year. And it's supposed to come. We are all waiting for it to come. The question is, does Ukraine have enough manpower and artillery to actually succeed in whatever the counteroffensive is?
Right, Dr. Lara, my last question to you before we let you go. In your perspective, who do you think is actually winning the war in Ukraine?
In my perspective, I think that nobody is winning the war. And it appears that the private military corporations, there are over 37 of them that are run by the Kremlin, which is an important factor, are active. And the war is like Ukraine has to regain its territory. I hate saying it, but it looks like at this point in time, the Russians are making more gains than the Western community wants to admit, and Ukraine dares to admit in front of its population.
Absolutely, Dr. Lara. Thank you so much for joining us on WION and sharing your insights with us.